Hi everyone, welcome to the final video in our series on new Excel functions. In this tutorial, I'll be focusing on XLOOKUP, a powerful function that allows you to search for and retrieve data from a table. Whether you are an Excel beginner or an experienced user, XLOOKUP is a tool that can help you work more efficiently and effectively with your data. So let's get started. XLOOKUP is a new function introduced in Excel 365 that simplifies the process of looking up values in the table. It replaces the older VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP functions and provides greater flexibility and control. Now let's take a look at the syntax of XLOOKUP. Okay, so XLOOKUP has quite some few arguments or inputs. So let's take a look at the list of inputs. The first input or the first argument is the lookup value, and the lookup value is the value that you want to look up in the table, just like VLOOKUP. Okay, and then the lookup array is the range of cells in the table to search. That is where you are looking for the lookup value. And then the return array is the range of cells where the results should be retrieved from. And then if the result is not found, okay, the value to return if the lookup value is not found in the table, and this is not in VLOOKUP, because VLOOKUP, if the value is not found, it returns an error. Okay, and then we also have the match mode, which determines how the lookup value is matched to the values in the lookup array. And then the last is the search mode, which determines the type of search to be performed, whether you want the exact match, approximate match, or a wildcard match. So without further ado, let's jump into Excel and then start to look at XLOOKUP. So in our first example, we have a list of sales, which has the salesperson's ID, the salesperson, the product that is sold, unit sold, the sales amount, and then the date of the sale. Okay, so I'm going to write a simple VLOOKUP and then write the XLOOKUP counterpart for this particular scenario. So given a salesperson ID 5006, what is the unit sold? So if I have to write XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP using this particular scenario, is going to start, their formula is going to start with VLOOKUP. And then we have to specify the lookup value, comma, and then the table array. Okay, so with the XLOOKUP, we have to look at the whole table. So I'm going to select the first row, shift control down arrow to select that. And then the next array is the index column. Okay, so the unit sold is in column number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we put in the 4, and then comma, we want an exact match, so it's going to be a false. Okay, and then this gives us 80. So for salesperson ID 5006, they sold 80 units. Okay, now let's rewrite the same formula using the XLOOKUP function. Okay, so let's start. So we start with the XLOOKUP, and then the first thing is the lookup value, which is the 5006 or whatever value we put here, and then the lookup array. The lookup array is where the 5006 is actually is, and is the salesperson's ID. So we can select the salesperson's ID column, shift control down arrow, and then the next argument or the next input is the return array. What do we want to return? We want to return units sold. The unit sold is in column G, so we select all the values in column G, and that's it. Just close it. Or the other three arguments are optional. You don't have to put them in unless you need them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses, and then it gives you the same answer as the first one. Okay, now let's go to the next example. Assuming you have a sales date, okay, of March 7th, 2022. What is the salesperson's ID using the VLOOKUP? So you see, the sales date is on the far right, and then the salesperson's ID is on the left. Okay, VLOOKUP is not going to work in this case, because with VLOOKUP, it wants the lookup values to be on the far left. So if you have to use VLOOKUP for this scenario, you have to copy this whole column of sales date, copy it into the left, then you can write your VLOOKUP. Okay, so that is like a disadvantage if the lookup value is to the right of the array. So in this case, the VLOOKUP is not going to work. Okay, but XLOOKUP is built to work that way. So I'll say XLOOKUP is like a VLOOKUP on steroids. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this formula or write this formula to be able to give me the salesperson who sold an item on March 7, 2022. So it's going to be XLOOKUP. Look up the sales date as a lookup value. And then the lookup array, the sales date is in column I. So I'm going to select everything in column I. And then comma. And then we want to return the salesperson. The salesperson is in column E. So we select the value, all the values in column E. And then we'll close our parentheses. And that's it. It's David Chen. So on March 7th, when you go all the way to the left, the person who sold an item on March 7th is this person right here, David Chen. Okay. Let's go to example number 3. How to deal with missing values. Okay. So giving a salesperson ID 50, giving this salesperson with ID 50, what is the unit sold? Okay, so I'm going to write it here. So when we look all the way down here, we notice that there is no salesperson with ID 50. Okay, ID 5050. There's no person with that. So I'm going to write a formula to look for this. So it's called VLOOKUP. This 5050 from this array. Remember, we are writing the VLOOKUP, so we have to select the whole array. And when we want to return its unit sold, which is column number 4, right? Column number 4, and we want the exact match. So it's false. You see that it's an NA. It gives you an error because there's no salesperson with ID 5050. If we have a salesperson like 5002, that salesperson exists. So 5002 unit sold is 75. But 5050, there's no salesperson like that. So it gives an error. Okay. If we don't want to see an error, we have to wrap this function in another function in order to give us a value when there's an error. But XLOOKUP is built with missing value in the function, okay? An option for missing value. So let me write the same function and then show you the missing value scenario in the XLOOKUP. So let's go ahead and write this. So equal to XLOOKUP. We are looking for this value right here from salesperson ID. And then the return array is the unit sold, which is column G right here. And then when I put in my comma, you see the next input or the next argument, it says if not found. What do you want to show if not found? So we want to we just want to say not found, put it in quotes like this, not found, or you can put anything that you want. Okay, and then we close it. We close this. So it's not found. If we put, let's say 5007, 5007 exists. So it tells you that it's 70, unit sold is 70. Immediately you put in something that is not available, it tells you that it's not found. Okay, this missing value option is not included in VLOOKUP. Okay, so XLOOKUP is more versatile when it comes to missing values. Now let's take a look at example number 4. XLOOKUP also works with tables. When you watch this table right here has been formatted in the form of a table by pressing Ctrl T when the whole table was created. So it's a table, and the table has a name. When you look on the left hand side, it says it's called table 1. So we can also use XLOOKUP when we have a table situation here. So let's look at the salesperson called Jake Kim. Let's take a look at the salesperson ID or ID for this person by using the table. So it's called XLOOKUP. I want to find Jake Kim from this. Instead of clicking John Smith and then using Shift Control down arrow to select everything, we can just bring the cursor here. You see that it changes to an arrow pointing downwards. It means it's a table. So it has specified the whole column, specifying the name of the table, which is table 1, and then the column is salesperson. So we want to look at this. And then the next is the return array. What are we returning? Is salesperson ID, which is on the left-hand side. So you take the pointer here. When it changes to an arrow pointing downwards, you just click on it. So it has selected the whole column of that table. And then that's it. We are not going to include a not found situation here. So I'll go ahead and then just close the parentheses. And then it gives me the ID for this person. So you can verify that ID number 501 is J. Kim. Okay. If we go ahead and select another person, let's say Olivia Wu, her ID is 5012, and we can see that from here. Okay. All right. Now let's go to the next example with wild cards. So XLOOKUP works with wildcards. Assuming you want to find anybody in this list whose name begins with Emily. Okay, this is just an example, so it has few rows, about 23, 24, or something like that. But assuming this is like millions of rows, if we need to find anybody whose name begins with Emily, we are going to use a wild card, and a wild card looks something like this: Emily star, meaning that anybody whose name starts with Emily, but it could be anything. It could be anything can come after that, but the beginning of the name is Emily. So we are going to use this. And look at, watch carefully and see how I write this formula with XLOOKUP. So it's equal to XLOOKUP. The lookup value is Emily star. So it's going to be this. I'm going to point to the Emily right here and then bring the ampersand. The ampersand is like a concatenating function to join the Emily with the star and star. So with the star, we put it in quotes like this. So XLOOKUP Emily star, then with our comma comes. The lookup array is going to be a salesperson because it's going to be on the salesperson's column. So I'm going to select the whole salesperson. And then comma, and be watching the tooltip whilst I'm writing this formula. Okay, the return array, what do we need? We need the salesperson ID. So it's going to be the left right here, salesperson ID, and then comma. The next one is if found. Okay, if found. For as an example, I can say, okay, if found, say not found. I can put it in quotes like this, and then comma. The next one is the match mode. So this is where we are going to specify the wild card. Okay. So what is the match mode? Is it an exact match that we are looking for, or an exact match, or next smaller item? What are we looking for? So we are looking for wildcard character match. So we select this option here, which is 2. So that is the wildcard. Once we finish with the match mode, we just close this parenthesis and then we are done. Okay. This one tells me that anybody whose name begins with Emily has a salesperson ID 5008. And then, so let's go and look at it. Where is Emily? Emily right here. Emily Davis. Okay. Her name begins with Emily and her ID is 5008. We can also say, okay, we want somebody whose first name begins with Ethan. Okay, Ethan, and it tells me it's 13. So if we look at the list here, Ethan Chang has ID 13, and then that is 5013, and that is what we are looking here. Now let's take a look at another example in which we can use XLOOKUP to return multiple values. Unlike VLOOKUP, which returns only one value, you can use XLOOKUP to return multiple values. So in this example, we are going to return the whole row. That is the salesperson ID, salesperson, the product, and all the columns, the whole row for salesperson ID 5010. So this is dealing with tables. So we want to take a look at the name of this table first. So when you click anywhere inside the table, you can see the table design is right here. So click on the table design. On the left, you can see that the table name is called sales. So we want to return the whole table for salesperson ID 5010, which is apparently the whole row. So I'm going to start writing my formula with the equal to sign. So equal to XLOOKUP, the salesperson's ID, comma, and where is the salesperson ID? Is in column B. So we select the whole column. When we find this salesperson ID, we want to return the whole table for that. And the whole table, we know the table name is sales. So I'm going to go ahead and type sales, and it just popped up. So it's sales. And then you close this parenthesis, you realize that it has returned the whole table. Okay. So now if I go ahead and let's say I change the selection to 5013, return this whole table for that particular person, and then you can verify that from this row right here. Now let's take a look at the last example in which we are going to use XLOOKUP in a horizontal fashion. Now, under normal circumstances, if you want to look up values that are placed horizontally, you would have used HLOOKUP. But then XLOOKUP can also work horizontally. So as you can see, XLOOKUP is just like a VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP combined. It has that power. So let's go ahead and then find the date of birth for salesperson ID 5010. Okay, so you can see the date of birth is in the third row here. Salesperson ID is in the first row. So we are going to write this formula starting with XLOOKUP. The lookup value is the salesperson's ID. And then the lookup array is where we have the salesperson ID. Shift Control right arrow selects everything. And then the comma is the date of birth. The date of birth is in this row right here. So we press the first one, Shift Control right arrow selects the whole row, close the parenthesis, and then we get the date of birth for this person, and you can see it on the right side here. You can go ahead and change the ID. Salesperson's ID 5005. The date of birth is 9/17/5005, which is right here. Okay. Now let's take a look at another example. XLOOKUP can also return multiple values, like we saw in the last example. So given the salesperson's ID 5003, we want to return both the salesperson's name and then the date of birth. We want to return all the two at once. So this is what this example is going to be used for. So again, we start writing the formula equal to XLOOKUP. We want to look up the salesperson ID from this first row right here. And then bring our comma. What is the return array? The return array is not just a single row, but it's multiple. So we are going to select both the salesperson and then the date of birth Again, shift control right arrow, you select both rows, and then we close it. And then this gives us the two. So for salesperson 5 ID 5003, we see that it's Mike Smith with date of birth 11/6/1979. We can go ahead and select another sales ID here, and then the formula recalculates and gives us the salesperson and then the date of, and you can verify from here, which is this person right here. Okay, so that comes to the end of our tutorial on XLOOKUP. I hope you've had a lot of fun watching this video, and as you can see, Lookup is a powerful tool that can save you a lot of time and effort when working with large tables. So I hope this tutorial has been helpful, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching.